Hey guys, Eric with Blue Line Fishing. Thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. Your time's important to me, and what we're going to do in today's time is I'm going to show you a really easy technique for learning to cast a bait caster, something you don't see a lot of guys explain really. So stick around, it's going to be good. Alright guys, what we're going to do first is I'm going to show you one easy method for learning to cast a bait caster. It can be really frustrating where you get those backlashes, those bird's nests and stuff like that. Not that you're not going to get them, because everybody gets them no matter what level of skill you're at with the bait caster and fishing. If they don't say that happens, they're not being honest with you, because I'm telling you, every once in a while you're going to get those big blow-ups. But first thing I want to do before we go over the casting technique, and I'm going to actually break the casting technique down with some fishing video footage that I have in slow motion and even still frames. But we're going to go over parts of the bait caster reel, because some of the guys out there or gals may not be familiar with the different parts and how that can help you set your rod and reel up here. So with that being said, the first thing here on the side of the reel is this is the star drag. This is the drag system for the reel. So if you turn this right here clockwise, it increases the amount of drag, the line that can be pulled off the spool. You can see I've got that really tight, you can't hardly pull any off. If you back it off, go counterclockwise like that, now it pulls off very easily if you're fighting a fish or whatever. Personally, I like to crank the star drag pretty much all the way up, and I like to use my thumb for any boat side surges or when I'm fighting maybe a bigger fish. But that is the drag system on that. It's how it operates with the star drag. Next is going to be this knob right here. This is the tension spool. The tension spool is used to apply tension to the side of the spool wall over here, and it's going to help you adjust the lure weight to whatever application you're using. You know, if you have a lighter lure, you're going to probably increase the spool tension over here. A heavier lure, you're going to decrease it. And then when you get good enough, you're pretty much have this backed off all the way. Then on the opposite side of this reel, on this particular Shimano, it has a magnetic cast control. So what that does is there's actually little pedals in this one. Some of them have little posts. This one has pedals that are able to either slow the rate of rotation on the spool or increase the rotation on the spool as far as how much resistance it is putting in there with the magnets. So between the spool tension knob and the magnetic cast control, or some reels have a centrifugal braking system, between those two features, that's really going to help you fine-tune your casting for what weight of lure. Now, I know there's a ton of videos out there on YouTube that'll show you how to cast as far as how to set the reel up. And one of the things you'll see is, for example, whenever you depress the thumb bar here, or the clutch, and then if you look out here to the end of the rod and I let it go, when it hits the ground, you'll hear guys say, and starts and doesn't back spool, in other words, line play off of that reel or that spool, that's how you should have it set up, and that's correct. I fish my reels though a little bit different. I fish what's called, some guys call it a sloppy spool. In other words, it's very, very loose. I have hardly any tension on the tension knob, and I have this backed off pretty far on the magnetic cast control. Because if you watch this lure here, when it drops, very quick, if I let it hit the ground like that, you'll see what happens. It starts, and that was even with me putting some tension, it starts to backlash, okay? But I get a lot more casting distance when I have a setup like that where it's very loose, because the most important braking system you have, it's not the tension spool, it's not the magnetic, it's your thumb. Trust me, it is your thumb that is the most important braking system that you can use. But I'm going to show you a technique in casting that I think is a little bit easier to do than your normal overhand cast, which it is an overhead cast, but it's going to cause that lure to rocket down towards the water. Stick with me. Alright guys, what I'm going to show you now is the casting motion, and it all boils down to the arm motion really on it. This is where a lot of guys have a hard time wrapping their head around why they keep getting backlashes and why they can't get good casting distance with a bait caster. What will happen is a lot of guys when they cast, they want to keep their arm and everything, and to keep this reel, mainly the reel, they want to keep it completely upright. So that's fine. You've got your thumb on the clutch, or you've disengaged the clutch here, disengaged the thumb bar, and then when they cast on an overhand cast, they want to cast out, and what will happen is what just happened right there. The lure will not go that far, and not only that, but it started a backlash, because what happens is you have that angle. If I'm wanting to keep this reel all in alignment like this, and it either rainbows like that and comes down and the spool will start to backlash as it did there, or it'll rocket straight out and the lure will hit the water. Well, what happens is that lure has stopped, the line has stopped, the spool is continuing to rotate very, very fast, which causes that big blow up, that big bird's nest. The easiest way to avoid it, if you watch a lot of guys when they cast, not everybody, but the majority, you get good casting distance and a lot of accuracy, is turning this reel inboard, turning this reel on its side, which is what I do. What I mean by that is I'm a right-handed caster, so I'm going to turn this with the reel handles up. Is the easiest way to remember. If you're a left-handed caster and the handles are on the left side, I'm turning the reels up once again, inboard. So what I'm doing, I'm going to keep my arm, my wrist, and my thumb in alignment with the spool, the reel, and the rod. And you'll see when I cast, there's a ton more distance to it, and I'm using my thumb for the braking on it. I'm not using much of the tension knob, and I'm not using much of the magnetic cast control. What I'm using is almost all thumb control here. But the biggest thing, and I'll show you some video here, I'm going to show you some video from actual fishing footage, and I'm going to slow it down in slow motion, and I've got another segment where I'll break it down and I'll actually do some freeze frame on it, and you'll be able to see the alignment of the arm, the wrist, the reel, and the rod, and what big difference it makes. So this one kind of easy trick, if you will, everybody wants to, when I watch and try and help somebody out, using a bait caster for the first time, they want to keep everything in alignment just like this and cast. But you're not going to get the distance that you need, and that lure is going to end up rocking it straight down and do that. And also, when you start with the bait caster for the first time, do yourself a favor, get quality line. If you're going to get a bait caster, a decent rod, decent reel, get quality fishing line. You get the cheap line, you're going to end up regretting it, because you're going to cause yourself a lot of grief. So number one is quality line. Number two, when you start out, this is a 3/8 ounce jig I've got on here, but just a medium weight lure of any type. Not a big heavy like 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce, 7/16, or not too light like a 3/16 or a 1/4 ounce. Something kind of in between, moderately weighted. That way you're kind of in the middle when you start out, not too light and it's wanting to backlash because it's not getting distance and you're throwing it too hard, and also not too heavy where that thing rockets out there, hits the water prematurely before you want it to, and ends up backlashing. But just remember, it's all about this arm motion, rolling this reel inboard, in other words to my left, and I don't have to crank on this like I'm trying to knock it out of the park. I'm not trying to throw this thing as hard as I can. It's a nice, easy, steady, fluid motion. I mean, it's just the reel's on its side right there, and that right there is an easy 90-foot cast with not a lot of force behind it. It's kind of like a good golf swing. A good golf swing or a good baseball swing, you don't need to swing honestly that hard on either. It's all about form, and that's the same with casting. It's all about the form. All right, guys, I'm going to give you some examples of how the casting motion works here. Slow this clip down for you. You can see reel turned, since I'm a right-handed caster, on its left side, reel handles up. Nice smooth motion with the reel. It makes it much more efficient when you cast. Everything is in alignment. I'll show you another clip here too, where your arm, wrist, thumb, everything's in alignment. We'll slow it down here, freeze it, and you can see that everything's in alignment. My arm, my wrist, my thumb, with that spool, with that rod. It makes for a much easier casting motion, and I think a much more efficient casting motion. And when you watch guys get good distance and they don't get a lot of bird's nests and backlashes, you're going to see this type of casting motion and turning that reel inboard. It makes it so much more efficient, and it's going to really, in the long run, you'll be able to cast so much better, especially overhand casting like this. It's not something a lot of guys show, I think, just because they do it so quick they don't even think about it. We're going to watch it again here at full speed, and you can see how this motion comes out all at once like that. Turn on its side, the reel snaps back up, we're ready to go. All right, guys, I hope you took something away from this. Like I say, the The casting technique here is one that will make your life a whole lot easier when you're learning to use a bait casting outfit. And in the background, there's a fish here at the lake. Look at that. Isn't that awesome? And it's a small bass. Anyway, so see, our friend Haley over here is catching bass as we speak. But back to the point at hand. All right, guys, 3 things to remember from this video if you didn't get anything else out of it, and I hope it did help you out. But number 1, buy yourself some quality fishing line. You know, when it comes to, I throw a lot of copolymer lines. I like P-line. For a fluorocarbon line, 100% fluorocarbon, I like Sunline, but there's a lot of other great lines out there, good companies. But buy yourself some quality fishing line that doesn't kink. It's not going to want to have that memory to it where you get a lot of birds' nests and a lot of issues going on like that. Number 2, remember to cant that reel inboard whenever you're casting. It's going to make it so much easier to have control of that reel, to have control of that spool. And number 3, make sure that you use the #1 braking system on any reel made when it comes to a bait caster, and that's your thumb. Your thumb is so important. And practice, practice, practice. Don't get frustrated. Like I said before, it doesn't matter how much you've been doing it, you're still going to get backlashes, you're still going to get bird's nests, or in tournament fishing they call it professional overruns. Whatever the case may be, if you're just a beginner or you've been doing this on the elite level, you're still going to get those backlashes and blow-ups every once in a while. It's okay. Just keep practicing and keep practicing, because it is such a versatile reel that once you start really using it and getting used to it, you're going to love it. So I hope this helped you out. I really appreciate you guys joining me today. Be sure to hit the like button if you like this video, and also consider subscribing. And remember, get out there and fish.